So I wanted to start a series where I give a quick overview and hot take about some mediocre acts from the past. Not quite like my What the Fuck Happened To series, as those bands are at least in the supposed zeitgeist. But rather, I want to focus on some sincerely mediocre artists. Bands that, when mentioned, make you want to say,
Who cares?
The Union Underground was formed in San Antonio, Texas in 1996. Singer and guitarist Brian Scott and guitarist Patrick Kinnison were the founding members, and after high school they started their own little recording studio and put out Union Underground's first demos and such. And much like other bands from their time in the late 90s, they started out kinda cock-rocky. But for whatever reason, they sold a bunch of copies and eventually landed a deal at a Sony subsidiary. So, with a quick retooling of sound and a new edgy wardrobe, their major label debut in Education and Rebellion was pushed pretty hard, as was their first single. Wait. I don't think I got that right. Here, this one's it. Yeah, I think this one's it. Now, me myself being from South Texas, I remember this was a big deal. You know, these guys making good and getting signed and whatnot, and, you know, touring with Marilyn Manson and getting a spot on Ozfest. I mean, that's no small feat. But to me, the pinnacle of their success was when their track, Across the Nation, was used as the theme song for WWE Raw. One of the dudes was wearing a drowning pool shirt.
Who cares?
The album sold pretty well, though, and every single did good, too. Their videos played a lot from what I remember, although they kind of just got lost in the haze that was the 90s to early 2000s hard rock, yeah, baby bands, you know, just very forgettable stuff. Their initial rise was bookended by a successful live album. You know, always the mark of quality when a band's follow-up is a live album, right? In 2016, they announced the new 24-hour only track and eventually announced an EP that was seemingly never released. Instead, they opted to play the entirety of their album in Education and Rebellion for fans in San Antonio. Now, it's not too surprising that these guys didn't last too long, but credit where it's due. I mean, they made their mark, and they weren't the worst band from the time that was forced on us angsty teens in that godforsaken era. And, you know, at least they didn't overstay their welcome. Lead guitarist Patrick Kinnison is now working with the band Heaven Below. Bassist John Moyer is now playing bass for Disturbed and Adrenaline Mob, and drummer Josh Mamolo has played drums in different churches and for local bands in San Antonio when he can. He has 2 children and became a born-again Christian. Singer Brian Scott started another band, and the group consists of members from the bands Union Underground, Evanescence, and Soil.
Who cares?
Sorry if you like these dudes, I mean, no offense really, but sometimes I just cannot seem to make a case for certain bands that came out back then. It's clear a lot of them didn't have the chops and were just pushed hard because of the popularity of nu metal and such. And, you know, it's fascinating to look back on. Please subscribe and hit that